Hi, good day, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the developers, and welcome again to this new video. Let's do have some code today. Let's code a little bit. Let's look at the code. I'm actually not going to type the code, but I will let you see because I already typed it. So this is the thing. I just published this article on lancecourse.com, and I would like us to go through the code and see how this is done. So the topic here is to have metrics, So you already know how metrics work probably. So wherever you are today, metrics are very important. No matter the website you visit, metrics are considered very, very seriously. So in fact, we have giant marketing companies like Facebook and other Twitter and other things, Instagram, TikTok, all of them are actually based on metrics. They are based on views. So that's what I'm actually talking about. So the views, the number of likes, the number of comments and other things, these are very serious metrics that are actually affecting and changing how our world moves. Today you have people who are specialized into social media marketing. So, they say I'm a social media manager. All this is because likes, comments, loves, shares and other things are important, and when these things become important, we as software developers we start to become the center of focus. So what I'm trying to say is, as a software developer, you now start to take that very seriously, and how you implement it become really not only an important achievement, but also it becomes a social impact. What it means is how you implement this can affect people's lives, either positively or negatively. So I want to call your attention on the importance of those metrics, and also if you are a viewer who is not a software developer, I would like you to pay attention to this to the end, so that you can be able to understand that at some point, metrics, you have to take them lightly. Do not take it like, I know what I mean. I've seen people actually taking their lives away because of metrics. So I want you to really be careful about that, So let's get into the article and see. So I just published it, so it already has 70 something views, so that's quite okay. So this is the thing, 70 already views. So this is something that will communicate to me right now as an author that, okay, approximately, I would say approximately 70 people have already watched this article, or at least some 50 people have watched the article or have read the article 2 or 3 times already. So somehow, that's how it is important. The metrics are very important. So if I am already implementing it on my website, I would like to show you a little bit how that can be done in this tutorial. That's why I wrote the tutorial. So what I'm going to do is we'll look at the demo of the project, and then we'll come back on the source code so that you will see the source code. I'll try to explain to you how I wrote the code and what it actually does here and there. So let's get into it. So let's check the demo. So let's forget the ads. This is important for the survivor. So here, this is the demo of the project. So what does it do? We have these blue bars here that we will not look at. So far I have 2 solutions. The solution A, solution B. The reason why I have 2 solutions is because I actually did 2 different implementations. I would have separated the tutorials to have solution 1 in a different tutorial and then solution B in another tutorial, but I wanted to create this parallel in between them. I wanted to create this comparison between them. So far, what these 2 solutions do is actually to track the number of views, the number of visits on the pages. And this project is comprised of 3 main pages. So this is the home page of the project. And then we have 2 articles that you can also visit. So the first article is here. And this article has some text down there. And then the second article is here as well. So one thing you can all notice so far, if you go back to the first page, so you can see here it says that the content is here is 1 minute read, and this is a metric you see already on other platforms such as Medium. I think Medium is one of these platforms that actually promoted this concept of number of minutes it might take you to read an article. So it already estimates that this content here, because I considered only this content, I didn't consider the ones on top. So this content approximately it will take 1 minute. So 1 minute for who? So these are the questions we will have to come back on. Sorry. So what this page does is to track the views. I mean, this code does is to track the views of the pages we visit, and some other parameters around that are useful in estimating this number of views. So the solution 1 so far is having 7 views on this page since I put it online. So you can see 7 views here. I think when I published the article, I forgot to put the link to the demo. So probably most people did not see and we could not track. So we can still forgive. And based on solution B, we have 11 views of the demo for this particular page, which is the index page. So let's see the other one. So here, this one says we are having 2 views. And then this one still says we have 11 views for the first article, which is about 3 minutes read. And we go to the second article. So here it says we have 2 views as well, and then here we have 11 views. So you can see these 2 types of metrics already contradict themselves, and they both have their advantages and disadvantages. So let's go back to the article, see a little bit how they are structured, their architecture, how they work, and then go to the source code itself. So the solution A, this is the design. So the solution A is that whenever a visitor comes on the website, we check if the visitor is has already visited through the IP address that we save in the system. If they haven't, then we now save their IP address there and then link it to the page they are visiting. So we save the page URL as well, or the query string, depending on the project. So if they did come before, so if they are actually in the table of the IP addresses in the URL, if their IP address is still in, it means it is somebody who has been on the website for some time, but he just visited a new page, or just visited either an old page or a new page. So we check here, has he visited this page before or not? If he hasn't visited the page before, it means it is a new page. It is definitely a new page. So we save that page again and link it to its IP address. So if you take this page table that records the IP address in the URL, so you have the IP address, the URL, the IP address, the URL. So if you're a visitor who visited many pages, so you will have your IP address several times and have these various URLs differently. So in case you already visited the page, okay, certainly you already have your IP address linked to that page in the IP addresses pages, IP addresses page table. So now we check for how long have you been to this page already. So if like you visited the page about 5 minutes ago and then you came back on the page, we assume now, so that's the thing, we now assume that, oh, this is a new visit on that page. So for the first visit you made, we already counted 1 view for that page. For this view now you are making, that shows you already visited the page already, but about 5 minutes ago, then we increment the views of that page. So here you can see that the question here is about how long should it take before we consider that, since you already saw the page and you are seeing it again after that period of time defined, we should count it now as a new visit. So that time is a question that we'll see in the next steps. So when that happens, we assume, okay, he just visited the page again, we count, and then we update the timestamp for that page, because we don't want him to reload the page and then to start counting again, because after the time has reached the threshold, we count. So once it reaches the threshold, we count again, we cancel the time and refresh it to the actual time. That way we can now still expect him to come back in a few minutes. So, and that's how the solution A functions. That's the architecture basically. So the solution B is this. This time around, instead of me to use the IP addresses, I use sessions. What it does is, once you hit the page, we check if the page you just hit. So the emphasis here is on the pages or the articles. But this is mainly, I use it on my articles because the content is dynamic. You will see why right now. So once you hit the URL, I'll check, okay, was this page already tracked in terms of views? So because the pages start without it being tracked, so a new article has no tracks, so we don't track. So when you visit, we'll check, is the page already tracked? If the page is not tracked, then we create a record for the tracking. So we start tracking the article. So when we create the first record, we give it its first view and its first open. So in this concept, solution, I use this concept of what opens and views. So let me quickly say something about it before I put it. Solution B. Okay, this is the source code implementation part. Let me see. Design. A second. I can find it. So probably I have to read the article and see if I didn't misplace some text. Okay, this is it here. Okay. So I'm saying that I have this opens and then the views. That's for the solution B. So solution B, I consider that some visits are what I call opens, and some visits are considered as actual views. So whatever is considered as an open is every single hit you make of the URL. So if you refresh the page several times, you do all these opens. So it will record it as opens. But the view actually must be considered after a certain time spent on the page. So if you spend some few minutes or so, and I like just like the first solution, the solution A, where we will check if you've been the page already for maybe 2 minutes or so, then we do. But this time around, instead of us to just define the 2 minutes, hard code the 2 minutes, rather the time is automatically calculated based on the size of the article. I think that's the beauty of this solution B. So let's go back to the design. So now if the page is not tracked, we start tracking the page. In case the page is already tracked, now we go back to the visitor himself. We check the visitor. Is it a new visitor or not? How do we find out if the visitor is a new or not? Every time you open an article, I save a session, and that session is unique to your browser. So we keep that session throughout the site, and that way we can find out if you already have a session, good, it means you were already on the site. If not, you just came in. So you can see that it is quite easy now. Instead of me to make a request to the database, instead the sessions help me take care of that. And now the duration, the time I should consider when it comes to how long have you been on the page, if you are you returning or not, and if you are returning, for how long have you been away or so, is automatically managed by the session time lifetime. So I like that also. So in case you are a new visitor, then yes, if you are not a new visitor, I think there is something wrong here. I must check that. So you are a new visitor. Yes. So have you exceeded a certain time, which is the time to read the article? Yes. If you have, then we increment the article views, not the opens, but the views, because it is after a certain time. So you spend some time that shows that you have read it, and that time is dynamically calculated based on the time, the content. So like this article, for example, it will take long to count one view. It takes so long because the article is really long. So in case you are not a new visitor, then we just create the increment the views, and that's it. Yeah. So some of the advantages of each one of the solutions, I mentioned it in the article, but what I am concerned with right now is for us to go through the code and see how this is implemented quickly. So let's start. Let me open my text editor, and this is the project. So how I structure the project and how it works. So it all starts with the index.php file, which is here. So what I do is I have a class that records that gives me some helpers on the session. So when we look at that class in the include session, so you can see what that class does is to initiate the session and help me. I have a function called set to set sessions, get to get sessions, remove and destroy the whole session in case I'm fed up. And then I have these functions that have nothing to do with session, but I actually prefer to use them here because I use the class as the method here as static method. So I wanted the whole thing to go beyond session column, make URL session column query string. So I didn't want to really go far about it. So this is how this does here. So we'll go back to the index file. Then I do this. This is like session start because I put the session start instruction inside the constructor of the session class. So I do that to start the session. By doing that, I now make sessions available on all the files below. So let's go ahead. The next file is the settings file, right? So if you check that file, you see that all I do is I'm returning an array. So I'm just returning the settings array, and it has 3 sections. So the first section is to set up the database. The second one is to have some parameters that are used in the calculation of each one of the solutions. Sorry. So for the solution 1, we need the session duration, which is how long should we consider that a visitor is a returning visitor on the same page, and therefore we count now. So I set that to 2 minutes. And then the garbage collection period. So that's one thing. So based on how the solution A functions, you can see that we have to record the IP addresses and the URL. Over time, some people will visit the page, stay on the page, and probably close the browser. So you won't get the chance again to have the event that will help you find out if the person is still on the website or not. So in time, you will see that you have so many IP addresses and URLs stored in that table, and it will become really a garbage. So I had to get a way of cleaning that garbage. So that's what I call garbage collection. So it will actually take the session duration times 2. So after that period of time, we assume these people are no longer on the site, so we can now clean their IP addresses. And the system does that every time you visit the page. It will check if there are IP addresses to clean. So every time there is a visitor, it will try to do the garbage collection and clean it. So the solution B, we have the average reading time, averaging speed. So this is the thing. If you have to estimate that an article, the reading time for an article, we have to find out approximately how many words people can read per minute. So based on my research, the average people who speak English right or read right can read approximately 250 words per minute. So this is something everybody can choose. And I actually chose 250 words per minute, just like that. So that's what we have in the settings. Then after the settings, we have the database, obviously, just to help us connect to the PDO database, and then instantiate it, that's it. So that's mainly the database. Then we have this count class. The count class is an abstract class that I created that contains some common classes to the solution A and solution B. So when we look at it, it helps us find the IP address for the user, which is useful in both cases. So get an article, so we can now fetch an article which is used to read the other pages, and then the article views. So this is to help us find out the views for each one of our articles, right? So that being said, now let's look at the implementation of these solutions. So solution A, this is how I implemented it. So we have a class solution A. Then first of all, we have a class to store. I said in the article, this is more of like ORM. So these solutions A.php and solution B.php are like the ORMs. So they actually interact with the database. So how we store a visitor, how we get a visitor's IP address from the visitors table, and how we get all the visitors, how we select the visitor from the URL, so yes, and then how we refresh the time. Remember, whenever we find out that you are returning visitor, we count a view, we need to refresh the time. So this is a helper function to help us refresh the time. So add views for URL. So in case we assume now it is time to add a view to this article, this is a method we use to indicate the URL, and then it will go in the database and add a view for that. And now finally our beautiful guy, the garbage collector. So this function is called to do the garbage collection. So what it does is it will estimate based on the period of time we choose. So should you collect garbage collection for 1 day, 2, 3 days, and so on and so forth. So based on that period of time, it will find out the IP addresses that have exceeded that and then clean them all from the visitors table. That's what this does. So in solution B, we have this class 2. Here we have less method, and that's one thing you need to notice. The solution B is actually less in terms of implementation. It's short, small, and light. So here we store the article ID. Yes, so insert into open view. So that's when we want to create a new record for the URL. So when you are visiting an article for the first time, there's no record for that to trace the views and the opens. So this is what we use to store it. Then the tracked, we check if the article is already tracked. So open views article ID. So we want to know if it is already inside. If it is not, then we'll use this to store. And then we have the increment function itself. So the increment function does two things. It increments the views and also increments the opens. So it depends on what you pass here as a parameter, but by default it does increment the views. So all you have to do is to indicate the article ID and then it will increment the articles. So this is what it does here. So update the open views table, the table that contains the views and opens of each article. So and then it will take the views and add whatever, add one to whatever value that was there. The same thing here. So that being said, also let's look at the database structure. So these are the articles, and you can see the views here for the article. That's for solution A. Solution A stores its views here, and solution B stores its views here in a different table altogether. So the articles are in a different table, but the views are in a different table, and we link them with this foreign key. So you can see for each article how many opens we have and how many views we have. Then we have the visitors table itself, which stores the visitors. So here I'm on the localhost, so it stores my localhost IP address, and then the timestamp, which is used to calculate how long I've been on the page or not, and then the article URL, which is unique to itself. So basically that is the structure of the tables. So like this. Now that being said, now let's look at how we use all these things. So we come on the home page or the read page. So we have two pages. The read page dynamically displays the articles. So it has the same structure as the index page. But let's start with the index page, which is here. So once we included all this, we are going to implement solution A and solution B. So to implement them, instead of me to pour the whole code here, I created different files called init A to implement the whole solution A, and then init B to implement the whole solution B. So if you go inside init A now to see how solution E is actually used, so on the index page. So this is how we do it. So first of all, we get the settings from the solution A. Solution A settings. Then we create the solution A class so that we can have access to the methods and also the methods from the abstract class, which is the count class. So by doing that, we'll have access to this class, getting the IP address, get the article. So all these methods will have it, and we'll also have access to all these methods here. So that's the initiate. So this visitor A contains these two classes. Now, once the visitor, we have the visitor. We instantiate the solution A by passing it, of course, injecting the database handler into it, because we already initiated the database here. We brought the database here, so and we did the initiation of the database here. So we instantiated the database object, we created a connection, we opened the connection here. So we have the database handler that can be used all over the place. Now, once we have the solution settings, then we go ahead, we check so do the garbage collection. Of course, you can see that here. So we start by doing the garbage collection. Every time you open the page, it does the garbage collection, and that's why when you open the demo, where is it again? So let me visit the demo page. Demo, yes, yeah. It says garbage collected here. We won't see that because there are other new updates. So that says new count added. Let's leave that for now. So you see that it says garbage collected. Every time you refresh the page, it will say garbage collected, and so on. And also counts, because counts are counted every time you refresh the page. So it also says opens incremented from a returning visitor. So it indicates that it's a returning visitor. So it means it won't count the views because it's still a returning visitor until we reach this a certain time, which is in this case 120 seconds. And then in this case we have to do 60 seconds before it counts a new view. So if I stay here for 60 seconds and refresh the page, here will count more views. If I stay here for 120 seconds, this one will count a new view. So let's go back. So we do the garbage collection, we get the user's IP address, then we make the URL. So we actually get the URL. You see why I put these methods inside the sessions class, which is just to have this facility here, this easy way of doing it, of course. So we do this, we get the URL, so IP, the URL, and the time at which the person just visited the page. I said this one because I'm displaying them. I don't want to have undefined variables, so that's why I initiated these variables here. Then now we try to find out if visitor is new or not. So we check in the data in the visitors table. We try to get all the visitors. Right? Oh, so we get every record of that visitor. So we are using get all. Remember, one visitor can have many. His IP address many times, recorded many times, because the IP address can be many times, but for each one of the URLs he is visiting. So we are trying to see if there's any record at all of that visitor. If there's no record, then it is a new visitor. We'll store the new visitor, right? So we do new visitor store. So you can imagine. So we pass it the IP address and then the URL on which he is. Is it the home page or the reading article, or which article again? So we take that, we store it. And now we add a new view. Of course, this is a new visitor. So we add the views. And then we alert. So we say that, okay, yeah, a new count added to this page from your fresh visit. So this is a new visit. And then we go ahead. In case it is not a new visitor, it's an old visitor, go ahead and find out visitor URL. So we get a URL, the time the visitor. So we get the particular URL on which he is. And then remember the timestamp that goes with the URL. So we find out if we have that URL, yes, if you get it, if the request went successfully, now we calculate the time between the first time you visited the URL and the actual time you returned. If it is up to 120 seconds, in this case 2 minutes, we consider that this is a new view again. If it is up to 60 seconds, in this case, we consider as a view. So this is the purpose here. So since we are in solution A, so this is the option here. So if it is elapsed time, so if visited, yes, we refresh the time, check time elapsed from this first visit. Okay. Then next, store the new URL. So we go ahead, we store the new URL for the same visitor. So maybe he visited, it was there already, but he's now visiting a new page. So we store that as well. And then when the storing is done, we add a view as well. Okay, so this is a new page he visited, and we also indicate new URL visited, new count added to this page from your fresh visit on that page. So you left the old pages, but you are now on the new pages, and we count that as well. And then, so visitor has been on the page for a long time. Yes, so this is the case where we check if he has been on the page for a long time. I don't know, I did a calculation here. So we check the elapsed time compared to the first time he has been here. Or I mean the session duration we set already in the settings. Remember that. So if it is time, which is the 2 minutes, then we consider it's a new visit. Okay. So we add a new view for that URL and we indicate new count added to this page. You visited this page more than once. So for example, if I go back here and refresh this page now, we should get something like that. Yes, new count added to this page from your fresh visit. That's from solution A. Fresh visit, yes, I think I've exceeded this this time, which is the time required to collect the garbage. So normally I should be tracking up to where we have 16 here right now. As soon as it reaches the 120, So it will give me a fresh visit on an old page where I visited more than once. Yes. So let me go quickly and come back. So we do that here. We save and visitor refresh time. So we refresh the time. Of course, we try that to avoid the errors because I want to be able to catch all the exceptions and alert you or whatever it is, whatever is happening. Okay. So in case you just visited, you already visited the page, but it's not up to that time, we don't do anything. So we just keep it quiet like that. And then I get the views so that I can display them on the HTML page, which is on the index here. So when you come here, this is how I display the errors. I use the session to detect if the alerts have been emitted, and then I'll display them and also remove them from the session immediately so that the error doesn't remain there all the time. And then I'll do the same thing for each one of the solutions. So this is the content, the HTML content of the page. So this is how I display the data I need. So I display the IP, the URL you are visiting, the start time, the duration set in the settings, and then the current timestamp that is going on, and the elapsed time, so which is actually the current time minus the set duration, right? Yes, the current time minus the time you actually visited the page. That's what gives us the elapsed time. So all these variables are coming from the above implementation. The garbage collection period, so you could see it here. So 113 seconds passed already. Garbage collected so it will refresh me to give me a new visit. Okay, now you can see that message, new count added to this page. You visited this page more than once. So it gives us these numbers. And then yes, all these durations, and just to display this, all just to display all these metrics you are seeing here. All right, so to the solution A now. So B, we go back to init B. So we do the same thing. We get the settings, we initiate the class, and we get the URL, the start time, the time at which you visited. We get the URL, visited URL. So we use that because of the display. That's why I affected that here. So then time to read article 0, I set it to 0. It will calculate automatically and replace that. Because of the display, we don't want to have undefined variables errors. So that's why I did that. So we try to get the article, like we said. We care about the article. In case there is no article, so this is the first time this is the first time we are having a visit on this article. Then we make the record. So we store the article, and by giving it automatically one view and one open, right? And then once that is created, we set now a session for that user, which contains the article's ID with a specific code. So the reason why I have article reading, then the article ID is, I have tutorials, for example, online course. I have news, which is the hacker news articles. So the sessions shouldn't conflict. So article reading, then the article ID, then we assign it the time at which you visited it. If you are on a tutorial reading, then the tutorial ID, and then you assign it. So that gives it different unique sessions for each article, for each category of the content you are visiting. And then we say, okay, one view, one open count added, because this is fresh, it's new. So in case the article already exists, it's already recorded, now we turn to the visitor himself. So automatically we increment the opens, because every time we hit the page, we increment the opens. So we do that in the first place. Now we check if the visitor has already has the visitor been here already. If the visitor has not visited this particular page before, then we count it as a new view. So we now count a view, right? And we say, okay, one view and one open count added, of course, because the open is here. Added from the new visitor on an article that is already being tracked. So that gives us this precision. So in case they already visited the page before, then we check the time period, and that's where it becomes interesting. So session info. So opens incremented from returning visitor. Of course, the opens will increment. I will used to do it here, but I moved it up there, so it does it for all of them, no matter the category, old visitor or new visitor. Opens must be incremented automatically. So we can ignore this error. Actually, we can ignore this alert here. So we are saying, okay, we find out the time set in the settings, the average reading number of words to read in average. So we use that. We get now the article's content. You can see we got the article somewhere above here. So we fetch the article based on the URL the person visited. So by doing that, so we now get the content of the article. The content, if you check in the database, we go to article, you can see the text here has the content of the article. So once we get the content, we use we calculate the number of words in the content. So string word count, we use that to find out how many words are there in that article. 200, 500, 700,000, so on and so forth. So with that, we now divide it by the number of words one should read per minute, and we get the number of words, the time to read the article in minutes, right? Once we get that in minutes, we convert it in seconds, because I want to be able to do this difference here in seconds, right? So the start time is saved in seconds, it's timestamp. I could have also converted this in minutes in order to do the calculation, but I prefer to convert the minutes into seconds and then do the subtraction. Now, with the time, from the time you visited the article in the first time, we do the difference with the time, the starting time, right? So this is a bit confusing here. So we can basically find out the time you made, you spent on this article, in case you already visited the article, and then we do the subtraction with the starting time with the article reading time. So based on that, we now decide if that time is up. So if the time is up for you, for us to consider that, oh, you have finished reading the article. So based on the size of the article, if it is supposed to be 2 minutes, 1 minute, 3 minutes reading time, have you already spent that time? If you have, then certainly you finish reading that article. So we can now consider that this is a new view. So if that's the case, now we increment the views as well, and we refresh your time again, right? We refresh your time here again, and then we alert the user that, okay, article view incremented from old visit after reading time again. So after the person read the article, the person refreshed the page, or the person came back again to read, so we count as another view. So all this being said, this is the result we get in such code. So now when we look at it, one thing I noticed is that both solutions have their advantages and disadvantages, and it's up to one to know how to use them and really perfect them to make them more sophisticated for your use case. So it is important. So one thing you could notice here, I've created something called the open read ratio, which I use to determine the interest on the article. I think if you are using Google Analytics, that would be the bounce rate. So these two metrics, the opens and the views, I've noticed that can be very useful. Depends on the arithmetic you apply on them, it always comes up with something useful. For example, if we apply the division like this, we get like the opens divided by the reads. So it's like you get the interest rate actually. So okay, you get the interest rate on it. If you the higher the interest rate, the better it is in this case. So the lower the interest rate, the bad it is. So you already know 1.9 interest rate. Okay, the lower the better actually is good, because if the views are also growing and as the opens, then we might end up with 1. So if you have open read ratio of 1, that is a good thing. That means there's an interest on that article. But if you have an open read ratio that is above, which is bigger, then it might become something really not good. So it means the content is not cool. So the same thing, if you do the opens minus the views, you get actually the bad guys. So the people who don't actually, how many people are in average who don't pay attention to that content on that article. So somehow I notice that when you start playing with these numbers, it becomes interesting. So we can see that here we already have 10 views, so it has counted 11 views. Here it has counted 15 views. Here we have 28 opens. So you can see, if you were to consider these opens as visits, so you might be like, okay, I got 28 views, but this is not. And if you go to the other articles, you can see here we still have 3 opens, 3 views, and here we having 16 views. So you can see the second solution seems to actually give some accurate numbers when it comes to that, because here we have the 1 and 2, the 2 minutes set, which is hard coded, kind of difficult for people to really spend 2 minutes instantly. I think this is something one can see, but you can decide to reduce it by making it 1 minute or so. So it has its own advantages as well, like I mentioned in the article. So yeah, basically that's one thing. That's what the article does, and actually call you to take your time, go through it, and see how this works, and see how this can be useful, and how you can use this to have an impact in your own project. So if you have any questions, and so if you have any suggestions, please leave it down in the comment section, and please don't forget to give it a thumb up, a like, and share with other friends who might be interested in such kind of projects. So the time will not allow us to go too much into details. I tried my best, but still, I mean, the 40 minutes already. So I hope you watch up to here, and thank you so much for your time, and see you in my next video.